Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would sit down and talk about my career into UX, how I became a UX designer, and what you need to become a designer and all those fun things like that. So to start off the video, I wanted to let you guys know about a bit of my background. I was one of those kids that didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was like really into this anime about holographic monsters, and I was like, that is so cool. I want to be someone who can make really cool technology. I went into the computer science program at my university. I found myself really enjoying the human-computer interaction part of it, so I thought, hey, I want to be like a designer for web stuff. I didn't even know it was called UX back then, but I knew this was something I wanted to do. The thing is though, we didn't have a concentration in my university back then for UX. Instead, I went into a concentration for human-computer interaction, which was the closest thing that we can actually have for that. So I graduated, but since we didn't really have too much focus on UX stuff, I didn't have a portfolio website and I didn't have a case study to show anyone. So I went into a software development job at a really cool startup. Since there were so many seniors there, I became actually pretty comfortable being a developer, but I knew there was always going to be like this little part of me that would regret not trying to find a UX job or not trying to become a designer. Back in December, someone rear-ended us, and it wasn't like a huge accident or anything, but I'm going to take the time to sit down, make a portfolio website, and actually write out a case study. So I did that for like a dummy app that I designed, and I put it up there, and I started handing my resumes out at that time, looking for a design position, but also being very open to a developer position as well. And it was around that time that I got a call from the current company I'm at, and I think their role originally was a software developer. But then once I started talking to the person on the phone, they were like, you might make a good UX designer, let me get you talking with our practice lead. So I really wanted this job. I had a really good conversation with the practice lead, with our CTO, and eventually I was hired. And that's how I got started into my actual career. And I've been working as a UX designer ever since, making solutions, doing applications, all that good stuff. The next thing in this video that I wanted to talk about was what you need in order to become a good UX designer. So I think one of the things you really need is a portfolio and a case study that you're able to show your ideas. One thing to keep in mind is that don't try to focus too hard on designing out a really cool looking website. What's more important is definitely the content inside your case study and how well you're able to tell a story through it. So I think that jumps into my first thing that you need to become a really good designer, and that is communication. So how can you let people know what is important in a design? How can you articulate those ideas that you might have? So design is something that's very subjective, and being like, you know what, I like this color better because I personally like it is just not a strong argument. You have to be able to communicate your ideas a little better, do a little bit of storytelling, do a little problem framing, just communicate in a way that's actually valuable to the client. The other thing about communication that I want to talk about is that the people that you work with are probably not going to be designers, like the client that you're presenting to or the rest of your team. You need to be able to understand that like some of the terms that you're going to be using as a UX designer just means nothing to people who are not in that field, and you have to be able to explain why something is valuable, why something should be prioritized or done when you get the chance to. Like, you're gonna have a bit of pushback onto whatever things that you're trying to pitch, either if it's to your team or to a client. Like, maybe they're like, oh, you know what, I don't like that color, or I think people know exactly how to use the software. Or you might hear things like, hey, this isn't in our budget, it's not worth it, let's scrap it. But I think as a UX designer, you're one of the first people that needs to stand up for the client if it's your project team who is pushing back on some of the changes that you might find valuable. And you also need to be one of the first people to push back to the client if you need to, and say like, hey, you know what, this is something that might be helpful for your users. We have done our research and we have talked to them. So being able to communicate that in a very professional and a gentle way is something that you need as a UX designer. The next thing I want to talk about is problem solving. So this goes back into how are you communicate the story to your client? How are you able to talk about and show that you understand what kind of problem that the current software or the organization has? And then how can you present a solution that matches what is going to solve all of that. So just, are you able to solve the problem within all the constraints that you have when it comes to like things like the timeline, things like budget for your client, and also the technology that you might be working with. The next thing you need is empathy. I think when we talk about UX, like there's a really great understanding that, you know, we have to be empathetic to our end user and we have to really speak out for what they need. I think sometimes as a designer we kind of get too fixated on that. I think a lot of the times we forget to have empathy for the developers we're working on and realizing that we are all really just one team. I think having empathy in that kind of way as well for your developer is something that is going to be really valuable for whatever team you're going to work on. Taking the time to sit with your developers and like give them a design review and like show them why you think this is important, and also like asking them like, can we do this? Is this something that would take a lot of time and it's just not worth our effort? Like, being an empathetic person is something that's really important to being a good UX designer, not just towards your end user, but also towards your team. And I think that goes into the final thing that I want to include into what you need to have in order to become a good UX designer would be just an understanding of technology. You're 99% of the time going to be working with some kind of developer who is making what you're designing. And it goes back to like, you don't want them to be in a really crappy situation where they have to customize something, doesn't fit into their framework, you don't give any context, all you have in them is like a JPEG of something. Like, that's not really going to help them. Tech understanding also means that like you understand how they're trying to solve the problem and that they're experts in their own way in something else, and it should be respected. It's not enough to just focus on like, I'm gonna make the most beautiful software ever, it's going to look amazing, the front end is going to be absolutely visually stunning. It's not within like actual technology, like feasibility of your software, then it's not really gonna do anything, right? And just having some understanding about the technology you're working with, that's also a really good trait that I feel like people looking for designers is gonna look for in the future. The last part of this video that I want to go over is, do you need a degree? And I'm going to give like a two-part answer because I have opinions on this. Okay, I'm just gonna say no, you don't need a degree to become a UX designer. No. I think in the future, in the next like 6 years or so, yeah, you might need a degree because that's what people are looking for. As UX becomes something that's a little bit more common and also like understood a bit more, I think companies are going to look for people with some kind of formal education about what UX is. And I didn't have a UX program in my school back when I was in university, but I know we do have one now. So I think that mentality is already starting to change. It really just depends on the company that you are looking to work for and like what their expectations or requirements are for joining that company. So I think a lot of companies are going to think of it as a risk that you don't have a degree and not even want to give you an interview even if you might have a good portfolio. And then I also know that in university, like that's where you can do a lot of networking and that's where you can also get a lot of internships. I didn't take an internship. I wish I did, but I know that it's just a really good opportunity that really should be taken advantage of, especially like if you know that you want to get into UX and become a UX designer. I'm not saying that you need to have a computer science degree, but eventually, since you are going to be working with technology, I think it's just like it's going to give you an advantage when talking to developers on your team. As a two-part question, I don't think you need a degree, but I do think you need an understanding of technology. I think it's really valuable that you know how to accommodate for use cases, even like how to test things. Like, is your design handling every edge case that there might be? You might need to know that, and I feel like you should know that because the more thorough and the more concrete your examples and your designs are, the better of a designer you're going to be. So yeah, I think that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!